So let me get the recording started. There we go. And so with that, let's dive into it. Let's start at the very top. At the most general level, what is AAAF? What often happens is people hear that term and then come to a session like this to find out more about why their colleagues are talking about this and peers and other institutions. Well, this is where it starts. At the highest level, what is AAAF? It stands for this, the International Image Interoperability Framework, which is itself quite a lot to say. So you will usually hear people say something like AAAF. That's very much the shortened way of describing it in most languages. But maybe more usefully, what is AAAF? When we talk about AAAF, we are talking about a model for presenting and annotating digitized content. So in many cases, in most cases, that means images, digitized images, photographs, things like that, and audiovisual files. And one of the nice things among many of an open standard and specification like AAAF is that there's a lot of benefits that accrue when you use this kind of interoperable technology, and the benefits from one institution often port over to working for others. And when it comes to institutions and the folks who make this technology work, whenever we talk about AAAF, we're always also talking about the community of contributors, the community of people who work on the specifications, who implement those APIs in software, the people who do the digitization work in museums and libraries and other domains, who are contributing to that ecosystem of interoperable content. AAAF is very much as much that community aspect as it is that technology aspect. And to that end, events like this, and we use this picture a lot. This was the last time we were able to have kind of a really large gathering. So this was our annual conference in Göttingen, Germany in June of 2019. This just gives you a sense of, the hundreds of folks who came from all over the world to join us. And I think this was actually the hottest day on record. It was an extremely hot day in a medieval building, but it was an amazing time. And so people got together, spent the week talking about AAAF, and they come from all over the world. So this is a map we're pretty proud of. This is a view into where AAAF is being used. So all the dots on this map are implementations that we know of, although there are many, we are sure there are many missing. And the red dots here are just standard implementations, whereas the blue dots are actually consortium members of the AAAF Consortium. And so they're the institutions and folks financially supporting the work of the consortium and the community to help us move things along and put on conferences like this and do trainings and all those important things that bring a lot of benefit to the community. So to give you a sense, if you're just kind of coming into what AAAF is and what it can do, some of the kinds of institutions and some of the bigger folks making use of AAAF, often since AAAF started just over 10 years ago. So we have a growing body of museums and gallery contributors, British Museum, the National Gallery of Art, the National Gallery in the UK. Aggregators like Content DM and OCLC, Europeana, a major one. Internet Archive makes millions and millions of AAAF images available, as well as where AAAF kind of got its start, which was in large-scale universities and research institutions, as well as state and national libraries. So the list is growing every year, every month of these kind of very large-scale institutions making use of AAAF, but increasingly we're also seeing it at institutions of every level, especially as vendor adoption increases and a lot of other ways of connecting to AAAF as the barriers get lowered to those. And so that sort of leads to some of the contexts where AAAF gets used. And I'll show some examples in just a moment, but to list some of these out, AAAF is started very much in the library world. As I mentioned, small libraries all the way up to large-scale national efforts. Started in manuscripts and archival contexts, but increasingly we're seeing it adopted in a lot of other areas as well. So museums for curatorial educational staff doing guided exhibitions. I'll show a few examples in just a moment. Scholarship and research and digital humanities. Contexts like that. We're also seeing it increasingly used in an even wider variety of teaching and instruction settings. So examples of high school classes actually doing comparative analysis of images using AAAF viewers and using that to supplement kind of some of the standardized high school curriculums. There was a conference last week called AI for LAM. And the whole conference was about intersections of artificial intelligence and machine learning in the context of library, archives, and museums. And there's a lot of connection to AAAF there because it's not an accident that AAAF makes it very easy to apply AI and machine learning software to compliant digitized collections. So to be able to send materials into, say, a machine learning pipeline, AAAF is very useful on that front. And then increasingly seeing connections into other domains and sectors. So STEM contexts, bioinformatics, bioimaging, a lot of cancer research contexts can make use of AAAF and annotations, some of which, or examples of which I'll show you in just a minute. But those are just kind of the main ones that we've seen, and there are others even that I'm not listing here. So before we get to some examples, maybe the place to start is to talk a little bit about why something like AAAF is needed. So, you know, institutions have been digitizing materials for decades at this point, for generations. And there's a reason that we do that, because images and digitized materials are such fundamental carriers of information. They're such important ways of reflecting on our own culture, of connecting with the materials of other cultures, and to be able to do that synthesis and analysis, and to be able to do it in computer format, right? Without having to necessarily go to these institutions and visit the museums. Even though that in-person experience is so important, there's so much importance in having the ability to interact with those digitized objects. So that's kind of the context where institutions have arrived at since probably the 90s, taking that digital step forward to bring digital elements into their collections. But in doing that, in that noble work, that was a really important shift. But in doing that, across a number of industries, we basically have invented some new problems for ourselves. And one of the biggest ones is this problem of silos and duplication. So if you squint, basically the way that we store and present all of these materials is the same. We have databases and asset management systems, and then we feed those to applications that are end user facing. So that deliver the digitized content to our populations and to our patrons and to our visitors and all of those kinds of things. But if you look at it, it looks a lot like this diagram. It looks like the same kind of technology stack duplicated just over and over. And what happens then is that you sort of make the end user kind of traverse these, you know, these catwalks between these different silos, and then have to dig down deep to get at the content and understand the materials, and then extricate themselves and go to a similar but completely different interface and do the same process over and over again. And so AAAF, as we'll get into here now in just a minute, is meant to be a solution to that, to address that problem of silos and duplication. So to illustrate this, now I've given you some of the context for how AAAF works and kind of the abstract sense of why we need it. The next section here is meant to give you kind of a view into real life examples. These are production examples, by and large, of how AAAF is used by different institutions to satisfy, to solve problems like this and address use cases. So this first use is maybe the most common and may look familiar to some of you. One of the first use cases here is this notion of being able to do deep zoom on very large images, right? So the problem here is that we have enormous assets, right? We have image files that are multiple gigabytes in size, but we obviously don't want to make an end user download all that data just to get the full resolution. So AAAF basically provides a mechanism for working with these images and materials at their highest resolution downloading just as much information as the user needs at the point of need. And so you can see this example here comes from Stanford University Libraries. It's a Japanese tax map. You're actually meant to stand in the middle of it and be able to read the locations that surround you. And to give you a sense of scale of this particular image, this is it's quite a large map. That gentleman's name is Wayne, and Wayne is the person who oversaw the digitization of this asset. So Wayne is about 6 feet tall. So this map then is about 2 Waynes tall by 3 Waynes wide, right? So 12 feet by 18 feet, which is you know, a really massive asset to present in an online context, but AAAF makes it quite straightforward to do so. And then if you're using this kind of deep zoom technology and it's got this focus on interoperability, you then start to be able to use interfaces that do comparative analysis in a relatively straightforward way. So this is an example called from the Leiden collection. This is called a curtain viewer in this particular case. And so this is, rather than comparing 2 images, this is comparing different reflective or different spectra that have where the image was taken. So in this case, the visual spectrum, X-ray and infrared. And so you can see you're able to drag that slider and then get a comparative view of those different kinds of views into the image itself, as well as some of the underlying structures. And of course, this works across sites as well. So in individual institutional context, this has proven to be a tremendous boon. It saves a lot of money. It makes it a lot easier to work with digitized assets. But there's also a lot of important use cases that involve reunifying or uniting or bringing collections together that otherwise have been dispersed previously. And this is a really powerful example that we use a lot in the IIIF community. This is an example of a manuscript from the 15th century that quite literally had the illuminations cut out of it. And so when that was done, what happened is eventually the containing pages ended up at one institution and the illuminations ended up through sales at a completely separate institution. And they're both in Paris. And so as the crow flies, these aren't that far apart. But in terms of digital interfaces, right, and user experience concerns, these might as well be in different dimensions, given the hoops that people would have to jump through to be able to reconstruct the manuscripts as they were meant to be seen using kind of pre-AAAF technologies. But using AAAF, because these were digitized and made available through AAAF compliant APIs, this is just a wonderful example from an organization called Biblisima. And it shows exactly that reunified view of the material. So you can see, right, at the highest levels of zoom, you can see those illuminations returned to their original context in the broader pages. And you can, of course, navigate from page to page, see this gallery view to see exactly how many of these there were, return the miniatures in that view as well. And then, again, be able to do that deep zoom so you can conduct scholarly research or just explore the curiosity of how this particular object came to be. And so one of the next capabilities that that really makes AAAF a crucial element in some of these research and educational contexts is then this capability of annotation. So not only can we do deep zoom and reunification across institutional boundaries, but you can apply annotations of almost any kind to any kind of AAAF asset. And so this is an example that comes from Harvard's edX course. So this is an online learning course about cell biology. This is not my area of expertise, but from what I understand, what they've talked about is how powerful this is about being able to use these digitized assets that describe the functions of the cell, and then to be able to incorporate those annotations at the scale where they're operating. So that really helps the students and the learners understand exactly what's happening, not just on a textbook page, but quite literally in the context of the cell biology itself. And so to be able to understand the different scales where these functions are happening. And then taking that annotation functionality steps further, there are all sorts of applications that that then bring functionality like crowdsourcing to the front. So this example comes from the National Library of Wales, and this was a really interesting and exciting effort to bring digitized collections about the local communities back to the communities in the subsequent generations, and ask them to do things like identifying people who were in the photographs, or identifying, you see there, identifying the locations. So being able to link a geographic point on a map to the digitized assets, and to be able to bring that to your audiences, as well as adding dates. All of this is accomplished through the annotation capability within AAAF. And so that then leads us to some of the newest and most exciting functionality. So these next examples are kind of the most recent innovations in the AAAF ecosystem. So this is an example using some software called exhibit.so, but there are other tools a little bit like this. And this is really building out this notion of guided storytelling, or sometimes people call it scrolly telling. There are a lot of ways that this appears out in the world, but basically using AAAF assets and then that idea of annotations and drawing attention to particular regions or sections of an image, you're able to guide people with context through different aspects of your digitized collections. And it can be a single item, or it can be multiple items brought together in conversation with each other. So this example, I'll play the video in just a moment, comes from Harvard University Libraries, a really amazing and an insightful project called the Slavery, Abolition, Emancipation, and Freedom Project. This is one of many examples where they use AAAF to walk people through some of the digitized assets related to that ongoing project. You can see here, so it gives you a deep zoom presentation. People can zoom in and out as they like, but then that box at the top allows them to take that guided tour through the materials and start working with it, and then explore their interest, and then go back to the guided aspects of the interaction. And so one of the other new frontiers in the AAAF world is exploring the intersection between maps and geographic materials, geospatial data, and AAAF presentations. So this is an example from an organization and a set of technologies called All Maps. And they're deeply involved in the newest set of specifications around mapping in the AAAF world. And so All Maps is basically meant to help institutions and people within those institutions do what's called georectification. So to be able to align the digitized versions of maps that they have in their collections with the underlying geospatial projections and maps. So in this case, using OpenStreetMaps. But you can see here maps pulled from a number of different institutions all overlaid in Boston. I'll play that again. So all these examples show lots of different sheets of maps, and then using what's called georectification, so control points, to overlay those maps on top of underlying maps. And one of the most important things that's happening here is that you don't need specialized GIS servers, you don't need specialized GIS software. Everything is done using AAAF and annotations, and a little bit of the transformation is happening in the browser rather than in really heavyweight geotiffs or other kind of niche geographical file types. So instead, just making use of open, interoperable data using AAAF. And of course, AAAF is now more than just images. I've focused a lot on image content because that's where the community's been working for about 10 years. But as of a number of years ago, we've been able to incorporate audio and moving image into the AAAF ecosystem. And so I will play this video in just a moment, but this gives you a sense of how people are making use of oral histories in the AAAF world. And so this oral history presentation has a video of the speaker and the interviewer, and then it also has transcripts that are included below the image and beside the image. And not only are there transcripts, you can actually use them as navigational tools. So you can click through the transcript to then adjust your place within the playing audio and moving image. So I'm going to play this video, and I believe I've set this up so you should be able to hear it, but give a shout if there's no audio. Audio should start in just a moment.
People.
So what's a typical day like for you at the vet clinic?
Well, I would start by saying like no day is predictable because of the nature of my job. With emergency medicine, it's just kind of hard to, you just never really know what's going to come in the door. Technicians who are equivalent to nurses.
So as you know, this project is focused.
So hopefully that gives you a sense of some of the really interesting things that you can do in terms of literal navigation of AV elements using that connection of annotations between the time segments in the AV file and then the specific lines of text in the text file, and lots of recipes that we have in the IIIF community for working with those sorts of things. Maybe the last example I'll show here before switching gears a little bit is to talk about some of the latest work that's happening. So we recently, last year, chartered a new group within the IIIF community, and that group is charged with bringing 3D into the IIIF ecosystem. So we started with 2D images, reflective media. Then we brought in audio and moving image to make that work in the same context as all the regular IIIF stuff and work seamlessly together. And this next iteration that will end up being kind of the 4.0 version of the IIIF ecosystem, assuming we can get everything settled, is to bring in 3D models and 3D objects. And so obviously there are a lot of 3D viewers out in the world, but there is a huge gap when it comes to interoperability. So being able to reunite pieces, that have been, removed to different parts of the world, being able to reunite 3D objects that work together, just being able to use interoperable annotations on a 3D model. So we're not quite there yet. If you're interested in that, I urge you to join us in the 3D group. But this is a proof of concept from a developer named Ed Silverton, who's one of the chairs of our 3D group. And he calls this the infinite canvas. And this is really just a proof of concept to be able to use a single deep zoom canvas, and it brings together 2D images from a number of institutions. And then you'll see it also brings together a 3D model from the Google Model Viewer and some AV material that you'll see play in just a moment. So I'll let you watch this and get a sense of the possibilities that we call here, or Ed calls here, the infinite canvas. So these are real deep zoom assets from the National Gallery of Art. And then this is the Google Model Viewer. This is the test asset that Google provides through that model viewer.
Getting back up to that first step.
And then, yeah, inline audio.
Collapsed too far, but it's adequate to get back up. Roger, we copy. Pretty good little jump.
So, as I said, really just a proof of concept there, but extremely exciting. If your institution is experimenting at all with 3D, with LiDAR or any kind, there's a huge array of 3D models. I urge you to follow along with the 3D work, because that's a really exciting new domain for IIIF and the work that we're doing. And so, those examples hopefully have kind of expanded your view into the possibilities of IIIF, but I also want to return to this idea of interoperability. And so it's not just enabling this new functionality and putting out new tools into the world. It's also critical that so many of these things work across the different viewers, and that really give both users a lot of choice in how they work with assets, and give institutions a lot of choice in how they present the assets to their users. So there are tons of examples of this. This is one of my favorites. It comes from the Indigenous Digital Archives. And the Indigenous Digital Archives is a wonderful project that brings together a lot of materials about what were called the Indian boarding schools. materials from the National Archives, and then brings together a lot of additional context from the indigenous peoples themselves. So some tagging, and then it brings that in conversation with transcripts of the documents and a lot of other contextual work. And so embedded into the viewer is kind of this really basic deep zoom viewer that you can see, but you can also see at the bottom of the screen, it offers users the ability to open these materials in a different viewer. So it offers the option of the universal viewer, as well as Mirador, which is a viewer specifically designed to do comparative analysis. And so that's just one example of many of institutions offering that choice to their users. So if you remember that diagram from the beginning about all the different silos, this is the answer. AAAF really is kind of the answer to that problem. And as I said at the beginning, it brings so many other benefits. When an individual institution solves its own problems using AAAF, all of a sudden you get so many additional benefits that accrue. So this is the example of one institution solving its problems with AAAF. It starts to bring in some normalized capability to serve up images and annotations and things like that. But then across institutional boundaries, you see this amazing ecosystem start to grow. So you can take images from one institution and then combine that with annotations and transcription tools at another institution, and be able to do that coherently and consistently across any number of places that make this work. And so this is really owing to the interoperable focus of AAAF and simplicity, the relative simplicity of making this work. And so to do this, there are two core AAAFs. I won't go too deep into the details of the technology, but I do want to mention basically the two core APIs and then some of the other APIs that exist. So that deep zoom aspect is what we call the image API, and it gets pixels, and it delivers it at a variety of sizes and resolutions. And that works in concert with what we call the presentation API. And so that is what determines, multi-page items, the order of items within a book, metadata, just enough metadata to make a useful viewing experience. This view maybe gives you the best sense of how this works. So everything in blue there, the pixels of the image is from the image API. And then everything in red here is delivered by the presentation API. So the metadata there on the left, as well as the order of the pages in the sketchbook. And then to complicate things, the actual pixel data that you see in the thumbnails down below is actually from the image API. So you can see how those things work together with each other to do this. Those are the main ones, but we do have we have 4 other official APIs. And I'll touch on them briefly. So we have content search, which basically helps if you have transcripts or annotations, if you have OCR, it allows you to do search within a AAAF item. So a lot like you would search with a PDF, exactly like that. There's an authentication API. If only certain users should have access to the highest resolution, or if there are sensitive materials, you can use the authentication API to govern those user experience flows. There's something called content state, which allows institutions and users to link to a particular state of a digital object. So linking to a deep view or a page within a digitized object rather than just the cover, say, the opening page of the object. And then the change discovery API is really meant for aggregators, and it's meant to make it easy to know when AAAF materials have been updated and last changed, so that, for example, harvesting becomes a lot easier. Okay, so that's really the focus. It's what I will say about the AAAF technology. Hopefully that, as newcomers, that has given you a good insight into this. For the last section of the presentation here, I want to just cover a little bit about how we make this work, how we arrived at those different technology pieces. So talk about the community and the consortium. So this is a little bit of a view into the landscape. So the consortium that has 3 staff, including myself, we kind of help manage the activities of all of these different things that are going on. And I'll go into some more detail about these, but just so you can see the array of connections between institutions and subject experts and the different groups and the vendors, all that make the ecosystem sing and operate. So the main piece is just the work of the community groups that we have. So we have kind of general interest groups, and then we have more formal technical specification groups, and then we have some governance structures one called the editor group, and the other called the coordinating committee that help us make sure that we're kind of going in the right direction in different ways. So for those interest groups, they're aligned around different domains where people have brought interesting examples and enough to meet regularly, usually once a month or once every few months, to showcase work in the community. So we have groups around 3D, archival materials, design and user experience, around mapping applications. We have a museums community group, and then a group dedicated to outreach, to lowering the barriers to working with AAAF. And those are very general groups. Everyone is always welcome at all of those meetings. You feel free to drop by at any time. Those are completely open meetings. And our technical meetings are open as well, but these are more specifically chartered. So these are really task oriented. So our technical specification groups are chartered to add new functionality to the AAAF ecosystem. So as of today, we have these groups working on, I mentioned there's 3D work happening. There's work happening in the maps domain to work on that geo-rectification specification. And then ongoing work within content search and authentication to bring those in alignment with the rest of the AAAF ecosystem and updates that we've made recently. And to support all of that, in addition to all the amazing work of folks at institutions and all over the world who co-chair those groups and attend each month as those groups do the work of showcasing and presenting, there is the IIIF Consortium. So this is a group formed in 2015 that was started by 11 institutions and is now up to 63 institutions, and literally financially support the work to activate the energy of the community and to help make the best use of the resources and the meetings and exactly events like this. So there are 3 staff roles, including myself, and there's just a number of governance and oversight elements. So the executive and operating committees provide direction for the staff and help us pick key initiatives to work on. And then the technical review committee provides some support and backup to the editors and the technical folks in the community as we work to develop new specifications. So as I said, we support those community and technical groups. We also put on the annual conference and the working meetings like this. We support grant projects. We help facilitate what we call the cookbook of best practices, and we do a lot of training. So I'll touch on that at the very end here. If this all sounds good to you, then training can be a great next step. We're also able to provide a lot of scholarships for training. We're able to bring people from around the world to our events because of the support of the AAAF Consortium members. And so for that reason, I really do urge you, even if you're a newcomer to AAAF, if you're convinced of the utility, what I can tell you is that joining the AAAF Consortium is less than what you would spend on a week for a full-time developer. It's that easy to support us in doing all of the things that I mentioned. It gives you discounts to training opportunities and to all of our events. And it really helps us, each new additional member of the consortium helps us activate the energies of this really vibrant community, helps us showcase all the best work, and helps us expand into new things like artificial intelligence while still working on lowering the barriers to expanding that global adoption so that we can get to every country and every institution on earth has the ability to work with AAAF. And so maybe to kind of wrap this up a little bit, just to give you some next steps, especially as newcomers to the community and to the technology, I'll give you a few ways that we offer to get started, and maybe we'll have a few minutes for questions too. On our website, we've tried to make it super clear about how to get started, and that's in terms of 2 different things. So there are a lot of technical folks who come to the website who just want to know about the APIs and the details of the specifications that I mentioned, but there's a lot of resources that we have for what we call end users. And that doesn't have to mean patrons of a library, that can mean the staff at the library. So researchers, educators, we have a lot of resources there at AAAF.io/get-started. And you can see a lot of the beginning materials that we have that help get you even more familiar with how AAAF works and some of the next steps to make use of these things. I mentioned this just a moment ago, but AAAF training can really be the best way to go from understanding and hearing about some of the examples that I gave here today to actually working with AAAF. So the online training that we offer, there's two different ways to do it. All of the training materials that we offer, because of the consortium support, they're all open and openly available. You can follow them at your own pace anytime you like. You can go see them there at training.AAAF.io. But we also offer guided trainings that can be kind of the most useful to work with an instructor and to be able to talk about a particular project. And then that instructor will work with you to figure out how to work with the image API and then how to integrate that into the presentation API and get a basic understanding of how annotations and guided viewing works in the AAAF ecosystem. So I urge you to take a look at those training materials. We also are able to offer custom trainings for institutions. If that's of interest, get in touch with us. We can set something up for whole institutions to take at once. And the last few resources here, again, just to get you started, we have something called guides.AAAF.io, which are meant to be mechanisms for how to find and work with AAAF materials at some of the largest and most popular sites out there. So this is the guide to finding AAAF resources. And so different institutions present their AAAF links a little bit differently. And this website uses screenshots to kind of walk you through that and show you how different places are doing that. And as a companion to that, we also have this how to use AAAF resources, which is really about how to use the assets you might find on those sites in the different AAAF viewers. So in Mirador, in the Universal Viewer, in contexts like that. So that's really a tutorial for using the viewers. And to conclude here, what are some next steps? So, if you were curious enough about AAAF, that's amazing. That brought you to this presentation. The next steps are to familiarize yourself with AAAF and get in touch with us and tell us how we can help represent AAAF and advocate for AAAF, whether that's locally at your institution or locally within your region or your sector. We're really eager to help you do that and make the best of the resources that we have to offer. Join the Slack group if you haven't already. That's where a lot of conversation happens and examples of new things like the ones you've seen today. We are happy to help run local events and give you materials and best practices around that. And then, of course, at the institutional level, we'd love your help advocating at the institutional level for adoption of AAAF, of course, but also adoption within the vendor space. So if you are working with a vendor, talk with them directly or let us know, and we can work with you to talk with them about how adopting AAAF could be really good for their entire customer base. And of course, I mentioned it earlier, but joining the AAAF Consortium is one of the best ways to help us sustain this work across a number of years, and to be able to offer more trainings, more events like this, and do more things like offering fellowships and scholarships, so that we can really lower the barrier across the global ecosystem of possible digitized collections. So I will leave it there. It's about 40 past the hour, and so I think we have about 10 minutes if there are questions that I can answer. We do want to leave a break before the next session starts, so we'll end at 10 to the hour. But I will stop sharing, and I'm happy to answer questions if people want to put questions in the chat or raise their hands. I think. Yeah, we can answer questions, and if I can't answer it, we will make sure that we can find someone who can. And I'm just scrolling through the chat to make sure I haven't missed anything. Maybe Caitlin or Glenn, you can tell me if there's something I've missed. I see a hand.
Got a raised hand.
Great. Go ahead. I believe folks should be able to unmute themselves. Yeah, go ahead.
Do I start or I just probably?
Yep, just go ahead.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Did I understand it right? So if I want to use the IIIF, I have, first of all, at my institution, install the image server. So what will prepare my pictures, what I already have like JPGs or TIFFs. And then I have to write the manifest where I provide the address to this image server with this name of page, of picture.
So that's right at a high level. Yeah, it sort of it will depend on how your institution is set up, but what you described is right. So there are some institutions that only use the image API, and they just use the deep zoom presentation of the images, and there are a lot of cases, maybe the simpler cases that use the image API and stop there. But then I think what you said is correct. Then to get some of that additional functionality, to get the complex digital objects and the metadata along with the digital objects, then what you need is a way to generate what are called manifests for the presentation API. And there are a number of ways to do that. I won't go into too much about all the different tools, but this is where there are a lot of vendor options out there. So a lot of asset management systems or repository types of tools. And if you get in touch with us later and tell us more about your institution, we can help. But one thing I'll paste into the chat is what we call the AAAF Awesome List. And that is really where we list just a huge number of software options. So if your institution, likes using Ruby or Python or whatever it might be, then there are tools there to generate manifests. Or as I said, there are links to, there are ways to then, make use of vendor supported options. Does that help?
Yes, a lot.
Question?
So it's like, okay, so this is the minimum what I need, this image API, so this image server, and then manifest, and this is the smallest part what I can use probably of this. And then if I want my text, what you show that there is possible also even the text of the book do also with the IIIF. So then I need to install this part, so it's also work with it.
Yeah, that's right. And so if to use what's called the content search API,
yes,
then it needs the source material, which usually comes from OCR or hand transcriptions. Yeah, that's right. And then there are tools in that awesome list that help draw that connection and make that connection between the search API and the presentation manifest.
Ah, okay. Oh, great, thank you.
Oh, great, of course.
Hey, Josh, we got a couple more questions in the chat.
Okay, let's
see.
The
next is there a group or forum for implementing optimizing IIIF through third-party providers?
That's a great question. There isn't a specific community group dedicated to third-party providers. What I would say is that the Slack group is often kind of a great location where people just kind of share pointers and share share best practices. There in the different community groups, there have been different efforts. So for example, within the museums community group, there was an open letter to museum asset management providers and dam providers that actually was very persuasive and convinced a lot of NetX and Gallery Systems and others which now support AAAF. So I guess there's no specific group, but I would say the Slack group can be a good resource, and get in touch with us if you have a particular domain that you're interested in. We could probably put you in touch with some others, and maybe we can we can foster some of that conversation. Okay, so Charlotte asks about how do we find more about scholarship opportunities? So every training session that we offer, we have what we call fellowship tickets, and those are kind of self-designated, self-selected. So take a look when we put more training opportunities online. We offer travel scholarships to our annual conference. So I would say look out. The best place is to join our AAAF discuss list, which is the email, the Google group. We'll be sure to announce it there and on our Slack channel, and it'll be in the newsletter as well. I would say probably early in the new year, in this late winter or spring, we'll be announcing more details about the travel scholarships. Yeah, those are kind of the big opportunities at this point. But yeah, the main mechanism how to find out more is the newsletter or the AAAF discuss list. Carl Jones says the digital archives, when will it be back? Yeah, I think I've seen that before. I think they're basically revamping. I don't have a sense of exactly when it will be brought back online. I think they did take it down to upgrade some of the underlying systems. I'm afraid I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe if there are others who are familiar with it, or if you follow up with us, we can try and find out an estimated date. Okay, we want to. We're about 2 minutes before we wanted to take a break and give everyone a chance to look at something other than a computer screen. Is there maybe one last question I can answer or information we can point you to in the last few minutes here? All right, maybe last call. I'm assuming all the black squares have nodding people behind them. That's what my mental image is telling me. Thanks, Glenn. I appreciate the nod. Okay. Well then, I won't call on anyone or force questions. I hope you have a sense that it's a very open community. This is really hopefully just the start of your connection and journey with AAAF. There's tons and tons of people in your shoes if you're just getting started. So there's the beginners channel on our Slack group. There's lots of places to get help getting set up with AAAF. And yeah, it's really your inner energy and interest that will carry this community kind of into the next number of years. So I really want to thank you for your interest today in this session. I hope you'll stick around. There's links in the chat about kind of the rest of the sessions for today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Those get into some more of the details of the different community groups. The plenary is up next. That gets into some of the updates over the last year for the AAAF community. And I just can't say it enough. Thank you for joining us. We are going to leave this Zoom chat running, but we are going to go quiet. So there's nothing wrong, but we'll put up a placeholder slide and hope you can stay around for the plenary session. So thanks so much. And have a great day.